You are now listening to theGrio's Black Podcast Network, Black Culture Amplified.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to Dear Culture, the podcast for, by, and about the culture. Today on Dear Culture, we're going to talk about none other than what has to be one of the most popular documentaries on streaming services right now, BS High, a documentary about the scam god himself, Roy Johnson. My guest today, I'm sure knows all the answers. Corey Wilson, who is one of my partners from the Ill-Informed Homies podcast and a fellow shenanigan enthusiast. Somebody who, whenever there is tomfoolery afoot, I know Corey is never too far behind. So first off, how you doing, bro?
Doing great, man. Doing good. Trying to get over this LSU loss, but other than that, doing great.
LSU was a tough loss this week, but at least you lost to a real team, so that'll help when you beat the brakes off everybody else. But the SEC is always difficult.
Yes.
So
we've got to see them plays out.
We'll see how it goes. But speaking of seasons playing out, Bishop Sycamore High, BS High, a high school that doesn't really exist.
I think I'm the most honest liar that I know.
How can you coach kids and you know it's not a school?
Roy would tell people, you're going to be playing in Alabama.
He was just selling me a dream.
Ohio was embarrassed by this. They called the thing explicitly a scam. And then said they couldn't do a damn thing about it.
This documentary, which is on Max, is about Roy Johnson and a program he built that didn't actually, it's like it existed on paper to some degree, and even that seems kind of shady. He's a man who delusionally decided he wanted to be a football coach and wanted to build football programs and scammed his way through this, but was so good at it, he managed to scam his way onto ESPN against IMG Academy, which is a well-known, football powerhouse, sports school. Everybody who's into, high school sports and prep school sports is familiar with IMG. And that is the moment that blew the whole thing open, because once people saw the brakes getting beat off his Bishop Sycamore squad in this game, everybody was wondering how they got there in the first place. And then everybody started to pay attention. And this is something that his programs had been running since like 2018. Somehow he gets all the way through 2021 before people realize he is a man who's running a school football program without a school attached to it in a real traditional sense of, any real sense. So let's start at the top. Roy Johnson, who is the man behind this, is he on the Mount Rushmore of scammers?
Oh, definitely. I'm trying to think of who else would be on there.
I don't know who else belongs on there, but I know he has to have a spot. That's how I feel.
Sure. And, he did come up with that classic name, Loophole Leroy, which I thought was fantastic. I was like, that's a great nickname, Loophole Leroy. He may need like his own show or podcast called Loophole Leroy. He's definitely like, I think that the magnitude of the scam he pulls off, like, it's got to put him up there. It's got to put him on. Like, because it's not even something people would even normally, like, think possible. Like credit card scams and stuff like that. That's everyday stuff that everybody's doing. Creating fake schools and playing games on ESPN. Like, this is a new level of scamming.
That's what I enjoyed about the doc. They kept talking about how the reason he didn't break any laws is because nobody thought this was a law that needed to be put on the books. Nobody thought you needed to say you cannot create a football team for a high school that doesn't exist and treat it like a high school and schedule game. Like, nobody thought this was something you had to legislate.
Yeah, and that was the most surprising part to me, is that he's able to get away with this because he actually didn't break any laws. But it's like you would think there's got to be a law against some of this. There isn't.
Something got to be illegal. Like, it's illegal. Like, it's all just wrong, but it ain't illegal.
But it ain't illegal.
That's dumbfounding. The fact that he's able to do this, be a part of this documentary. So, and let's actually start there. So, I'm amazed that he's willing to do this documentary in the first place. This shows how much of a narcissist he really is, right? Like, they mentioned on this doc that he probably thinks he won by having his story told. He called himself a legend in like the first minute of the doc. He's like the legend of Roy Johnson. Time for a quick break. Stay with us. And we're back. Like, what were your first thoughts when you started watching this doc, bro?
So, like early on, and I was like, why did he participate in it? Like, he clearly has like no legal team, no publicist. Like, he's on here admitting to fraud, like lying to people, not paying people. Like there's no reason to ever talk about this on camera.
At all.
I just, you never know what people can dig up. I would have never spoke on this topic ever. You couldn't pay me if I was him. But the fact that he did it, I mean, that, like you said, that's a new level of narcissism, bro. Like, he's crazy. Clearly has no legal advice going.
Yeah, I couldn't get over the fact that, and they mentioned this. He was like, he's gonna be the first person, well, the next in a line of people to fall on their sword, like in a documentary, and basically tell all of his frauds and everything, just because he thinks he's worthy of having his story told to begin with.
Right.
But strangely enough, he's on there early on talking about, do I look like a con man? And
Right,
nobody
that's
wants to answer that question. And nobody wants to say yes, but everybody's like, yeah, of course you do. You look crazy, bro. And he legitimately, delusionally is just like, I mean, I need to make sure I look good. Like, I look trustworthy.
Right. Yeah, that was crazy. But yeah, the fact that he would ever speak on this, I would have been no commenting throughout this thing. It was like I wouldn't have had a comment on none of this stuff.
Yeah, So here's a big picture question that I had. Is this just proof of how flawed the system is, that you can literally, like, people, like, nobody's paying attention, right? Like, you can literally house kids in a hotel and move them from hotel to hotel once your free 3 months is run out, of your scamming the hotel out of their thing. Like, lack of food, lack of facilities, I don't, like, how, in your mind, how was he able to pull this off? Like, because there were other adults involved that helped pull this off. There were other coaches. Like, I don't know how they were getting paid. Like, I don't know how anybody was getting paid during all of this, because there didn't seem to be any source of income.
My philosophy in business is do what the people who have the money do, even if you don't have the money.
Like, how was he able to do this for so long? Like, that's the part that I couldn't understand. Who was backing this enough to keep this afloat?
So, I've talked to people about this, and I think, everybody has, like, I guess, different people that they blame the most.
Okay.
I would say I place a lot of the blame here on the kids.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I think the kids are at fault. I think the parents are also.
I'm 100% blame Roy. I blame Roy, and then I blame the other adults in the room, which includes the parents,
right,
and the coaching staff, and anybody who was a part of this and was like, I'm gonna let this go because of his vision.
Like, so some of the parents, I guess had sent their kids off to him. So maybe they don't really have, like, eyes on the program, and they can't really see the day-to-day things, and maybe their kids aren't communicating the situation accurately to them. That I'm going to assume that's why they didn't throw in the towel on this. But there was, like, a lady who was, like, the quarterback's mom. She was there on site. Like, she's working at the game and still allowing her son to participate in this. Like, you would definitely... So anyone who was like, any adults that were on site and actually saw this firsthand, they definitely have a high culpability. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, the two parents, the two teen mothers that they had on there, I couldn't believe they agreed to do this, because while they're telling the story of their inability to understand it, I'm like, yo, you sent your kids into the lion's den. Like, you were present enough to be on the field when a kid tears his ACL. Like, you're there, so you're seeing, that this is not an environment to be
There's no doctor to help him out, like, the kid tears his ACL and there's no doctor to help him out. He's just laying there. There's no trainer on the staff. Like, you see that. You see kids sharing helmets, which is actually, like, illegal. And none of this says, I'm at least pulling my kid out of this. Like, I don't know what y'all are doing, but I'm at least going to pull my kid out.
That's what dumbfounded me. I can understand you looking at other people's kids to some degree and being like, hey, that parent signed off on this.
Right.
But your son, you said your son did not have a certified helmet, a helmet that should be used. He was using his high school helmet. Why are you allowing your child to be here? And then why are you on this documentary talking about driving Roy to go get a check from Kinko's,
Well,
like a hot check.
I can tell you why she allowed her son to be there, and I can tell you why all the kids are there. And I think the big picture is like we've just like glamorized like being an athlete so much and being a professional athlete so much that people will go to any length to have an opportunity at that goal, man. You see people are willing to put up with anything, willing to do anything, come up with money. People who claim they didn't have money will find a way to take out a loan, falsify a loan to have an opportunity to play sports. And that's just crazy.
You know, that is the one thing that that's like the sad part of this whole thing. Those kids' stories were ruined, right? Like some of them didn't have another opportunity for them. This was the chance that they thought they were going to have, right? But even the one story they tried to build as a potential happy ending, which was the Trillion, which was the mother with the son,
right?
You know, Trillion, I can't remember his last name, but the quarterback,
right?
Like, you know, he gets a shot at Grambling, and then Grambling pulls the scholarship because they're like, dude, you are associated with the scam school. We can't let you go here. And I get it. If Grambling can't let him be a part of that team. Like, who knows are your records even legit? What records do you have? You know, like what school transcript can I trust that you have even you're trying to transfer here to be what? To be a student, to start as a freshman? Where are you in this process, right? So, you know, I felt bad for a lot of those, for the kids. Like, you're blaming the kids. I feel bad for them.
I didn't feel bad for them, dude.
Wait, how could you not feel bad for them? How could you, like, not feel bad?
All right, so for one, we had kids on there, like, these kids are aware. A lot of these kids had already graduated high school. They're not stupid. They know they should not continue to play against high school kids, right?
Yes, I do agree there, yes.
So your old grown behind is still playing against 15, 16, 17-year-olds. You're already out of school. They had one dude that already been out of school for 2 years, played JUCO ball and everything, and he's playing against high school. Like, you know that's wrong.
Right.
So, like, to me, like, they know that's wrong. They know they weren't going to classes. Like, they know they're sitting around playing grab ass all day. This is a bad situation. And you know, and now it's like everybody's enlightened when the doc comes out, but like, dude, where was this enlightenment during the process? Like,
but see, that's why I blame the parents, because so the football season is from what, like, let's say you come on campus to start practicing like August. Like August, and the football season, the high school football season ends in November, maybe December if you're in the playoffs.
If you're making the playoffs, right? Yeah.
But then they go home.
Yeah.
No parent is like, this is weird. You don't have to go back to school. Like, the season is over. You're done. Like, that's what I'm saying. That's why I have a problem with the parents. The students, these are kids. Some of them are kids. Most of them are kids, right? They're like, I don't have to do any work. I don't have to do anything. I just got to go play football, and then I can go about my business or whatever. Bet. Like, kids are going to be kids. And these, you know, admittedly, they were looking for students, and I use that term loosely, who, you know, perhaps struggled for their grades, and like, they were looking for the most manipulable kids they could find, right? So they're looking for the ones who ain't gonna care as much. But the parents, like, nobody's checking in at all. Like, nobody's concerned about paperwork or grades from your kids or anything like that. And like, they played legit seasons of football.
Right.
Like, they had, I mean, they never had a winning record, but they played legit seasons of football. And that's
they
what I
traveled
don't
to
get.
games. They
right, like, they
a team
went
in
places.
Texas. They.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, nobody checks to see. I mean, I guess when you're a football coach, you're a coach of anything. I've never been like a coach at that level or any level that requires significant paperwork or like genuinely scheduling things out. You just like, this school is available to play. Bet they'll come to us and play. Cool. Like,
yeah. So I could sympathize with them. I don't think had I been in that position that I would like say, oh, let's Google this school and see if it's an actual school. Like, if someone has vouched for them and said, and they got high school on their name, I would assume they were a high school as well. Because like you said, no one ever thinks that this type of scam is happening, and that you got a whole 60, 70 guys to participate in this type of scam too. So if someone said, hey, I represent Joe Blow High School out of Maryland, I'd be like, all right, cool. Here, we got an open date. We'll play y'all. Like, so I imagine not much background check goes to that.
Should
And this
they?
one was
Like, should they now that you, or if you're, so maybe not the actual individual teams, because it looks like what happened with the IMG, like they went to a person who creates schedules.
right.
Should that person be checking, or is this such an anomaly you never really have to think about doing that? Like, or you gonna do it now? Like, you start looking at the stuff now.
So yes, I think now we have to. Now that we seen, even like laws that weren't in place before need to go in place now. So like processes and things that weren't in place before probably need to go in place now, and actually checking to see that this is the actual high school, that they are in compliance with whatever state they're in, like they have some sort of certification, some paperwork.
Right.
Is probably something that needs to happen. We might need to see some birth certificates to make sure these cats ain't 25, but I think all that type of stuff needs to happen now. So someone needs to do that work.
Probably somebody needs to be doing. All right, we're about to take a real quick break here on Dear Culture. We're going to come back. We're going to talk more about BS High, the doc on Max about Roy Johnson and the Bishop Sycamore football scandal that rocked the sports world in 2021. And now, because the doc is back on, we're reliving it all over again. So stay tuned right here on Dear Culture. All right, we're back here on Dear Culture talking Bishop Sycamore and BS High, the documentary on Max that has everybody talking about the imagination of a scandal. Like, how much of a scandal can you personally imagine and turn into? So here's my question. Like I said, I blame all the adults in the room because there were coaches and parents, but what should happen to Roy Johnson and all the coaches? We already know that no laws have been broken. The state of Ohio did a whole 79-page report, and they basically said, this is bad, but he didn't break any laws because there were no laws on the books to cover this thing. Though I still find that even hard. I mean, they got the whole YSL folks in jail on a RICO. There got to be some kind of, there got to be some way. There's some way they can get these folks, but what should happen to them?
I thought that the way to get him is usually the way that they get most people in these types of situations where there aren't laws for it, and that's with the money.
Tax evasion.
Tax evasion, right?
Yes.
That's always the way. If you receive some money that you didn't claim, we'll hit you with the tax evasion. That's usually the number one way to get it. And with these, there was a big claim on there that he coerced these young men to take PPP loans. Now, if somehow they can prove that happened, I think that's the way to go after. Like, there's clearly no rules on the books about creating a fake high school and making kids not go to class. But if he's out here convincing 17, 18-year-old kids to take fraudulent PPP loans, that's illegal. I know. And if he received some of those funding and didn't claim those funding, you know what I'm saying, there got to be some kind of tax type of situation or something. I think that's the only route. I think
they got around it because it's designated as a religious school, so it's like a nonprofit. So he got around that. Whatever money that they took in, they got around through their nonprofit status, I think.
Yeah, they did say something about.
That's still defrauding the government. Because that's the crazy part about this. People were allegedly coerced into taking out PPP loans to cover tuition. That means you defrauded the government, right? People use loan funds from the government to fund an entity that doesn't actually exist.
Right.
That's gotta be a crime somehow.
Yeah. I think that's the route that they would have to take to catch these guys. Someone's got to dig into that and figure out, what part of that was illegal. Because I'm 100% certain that that's
What was the most surprising part about this doc to you? Of all the crazy stuff, what was the thing that got you the most?
I think one of the stories that really surprised me was when the kids told the story of him beating a homeless man and them sitting there watching. That really just goes. So, I remember the days of being an 18-year-old, 19-year-old athlete, dude. And that's just not the type of thing I would ever participate in or just sit around and watch, dude, somebody beating up a homeless dude. And, the fact that his players would sit there and I don't even care if it's my coach. I'd be like, Coach, chill out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Coach, stop. What are we doing here? But the fact that they would sit around and watch him do that, it just tells me a lot about the players that were involved here. So maybe I shouldn't be surprised that they did other things. But I think that was outlandish.
The geese story was weird because it really doesn't fit in the doc, but it was the kind of thing that when the kid tells a story about him running over geese and killing geese, you gotta leave in there because it speaks to Roy's mentality as a human.
Right.
Because it really doesn't have anything to do with anything. Like, it's like how did we even get to this point where the dude is telling a story about him running over geese on the road and then backing up and doing it over again? But then he responds to it as like, yeah, I did. I killed. He said I killed one
geese.
But I guess if you say I killed, there were multiple geese there, then I guess maybe it's more than one. I'm like, this dude really is bonkers. Like he's, like he didn't deny it at all. He was like, yeah, I did it. Yeah, I ran over some geese.
Yeah. That was probably the most surprising part, that story. And also just the ability to get away with not paying that many people for that long, just continually bounce around from spot to spot and not pay people. I was a little surprised by that. I was like, how is this not catching up with him?
I understood why the investigator from the Ohio High School Athletic Association, he was like, Roy really opened up his mind to what fraud could be. Like before Roy, he didn't understand how much fraud was possible.
Right. Yeah. So
I love that guy.
I wouldn't think that you could continually do this, but apparently you can. Like he's like, yeah, we just gonna go from one hotel here for 30 days, here for 60 days, here for 90 days. We're not gonna pay nobody. We're gonna go eat here. We're gonna go do this. We're not gonna pay nobody. Like we're gonna cut fake checks to this hotel. Like it's like, how is that even possible? Because in my mind, people like commit one or two frauds and they get caught there in jail for 10 years. But make it through. I guess you can get away with it.
I mean, I was amazed by that too, but I was just like, I'm like you, like I would never think to keep committing that. At some point, you just got to stop.
Right.
Like, and he only stopped because he got caught, more or less. Like the whole thing fell apart, which makes me wonder. Do you think everybody was kind of just waiting for the other shoe to drop? Like everybody knew this was unsustainable, but it lasted longer than it should have. So they're just like, all right, we're just going to ride this out. But there's no way this is something that's going to be able to last forever. Like it should have lasted as long as it did. Like the fact that he had football seasons in 2018, 19, 20 through 21 when they started canceling games finally after the IMG TV debacle. Like, do you think at some point that so I think two things are possible. So this is, I guess, is a better question. Like, do you think because it went so long, they were like, well, maybe we'll get away with this? But there got to be somebody on the coaching staff who's like, guys, this is not going to work. We're all going to prison. Like, we're going to jail at some point.
You would think so. If I was on the staff, I'd have been that dude. I'd be like, nah, this doesn't make no sense. We definitely get caught. This is a terrible idea. And, I would be scared that I would be associated with it in some kind of way. Like, this fall back on me. Like, I'm complicit in this. Like, I'm like a participant. I don't know the laws. So I ain't even trying to find out. Like, but I'm not trying to go to jail for none of this. But, and even with the players, too, like, they had negative consequences. He's putting their name on the hotel room. So now they got evictions,
they got on eviction notices and all that stuff.
Like stuff like that on there. On that thing is a dude who act like he didn't realize he had a PPP loan in his name. like they're gonna suffer potential long-term consequences for these types of things too, man. So that's why you just don't participate in stuff like this. It's not worth it. And nobody really got the benefit that they set out to get from it. So it wasn't one of those things where it's like the ends justify the means. Because it wasn't even a good idea. Like you would it was never going to accomplish what you set out to accomplish. So,
except for Roy, who somehow believes that he got exactly what he was supposed to have, thinking that by his story being out there, because he did say, like, I don't believe him when he was like, yeah, I mean, like 15 other schools have already called to try to play us. Like, bro, nobody wants any parts of you, bro. Like, it's impossible. Nobody.
No one will ever play any school he's ever affiliated with ever again. If any player ever plays on a team that he's affiliated with, I'm talking, he could be the assistant coach at Waterboy, anything. No one's playing him. Like it's not happening. That he's completely canceled. Which is
I have sympathy for the kids, but anybody going forward, like from this moment on, like I don't know what he's doing right now, but this moment forward, anybody associated with him should be ashamed of themselves. Like whatever negatively happens to you from here on out is 100% your fault. Like that, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know he said he wanted to continue to try to, make a new football team or whatever, new school. I just don't see that happen. I am certain that will happen.
Yeah, I think the Roy Johnson story, it is legend because, I mean, he's right about that. Like, after this documentary, I mean, everybody I know is watching this documentary. Like, I've seen it several times. I've watched it multiple times since the first time because I was like, I can't believe what I just watched. I need to go watch that again to make sure I'm not tripping.
It probably took me 4 hours to watch the 2-hour documentary because I kept rewinding. I was like, did that just happen? Like, did he really just did that? I'm watching it, pausing it, discussing it. I was like, that can't be right. That can't happen.
This is definitely going to go down as one of the greatest documentaries of all time, just for what it exposes, right? Like the amount, because it's just hard to believe. Like even now, I still find it difficult to believe that he was able to pull this much stuff off. Right. Because technically speaking, he got away with it. He still is. Aside from all the civil lawsuits he has, which he can't pay, it ain't like he got any money. So, I mean, if there are 30 lawsuits, that's 30 people who are just going to be waiting for their money for a real long time. And he knows this, so he probably doesn't even care. He's just like, whatever, like my kid, he probably don't see his children, his wife, his ex-wife or girlfriend, whatever. I mean, they can't have nothing to do with him. Like this doc is all the reason they needed in court to revoke his custody.
Yeah. I think he definitely has to go down as a legendary scammer just because of the amount of people it takes to pull off this kind of scam, right? You got to have 60 players. You need another 10 to 15 coaches. You got to have so many people involved in this scam to pull it off. And for him to coordinate it and get away with it, he's a legendary scammer.
He is a legend, dude. Like as much as I hate to admit it, my man he's in rare air. Yes. He's done things that nobody else could do. Like when you talk about GOATs in their respective categories, Roy Johnson got to be one of the GOAT scammers of all time.
How did you feel about his complete lack of remorse? That was also one thing I was surprised of. He had like no remorse for anything that he didn't feel bad about nothing.
Yeah, I mean that just proved to me he's a sociopath, right? Like that just leveled up the narcissism. But then it kind of made me scared of it. Like he's like Suge Knight, like he kind of had like the end of the doc, the way that his facial expressions were looking real like maniacal, like he's looking at the camera like. I was like, I don't ever want to see this dude. Like, he seems like genuinely insane. Right. Like, whatever's wrong with him is no little thing. And he said it himself. I'm insecure. I'm an extremist. And I'm resourcul. He's like, that's a terrible combination. Like,
I got to keep an eye out for those qualities in people.
Bro, like those three, if you ever meet anybody who uses those three words together, it's like, you know what? I gotta let you go. This ain't gonna work out. I don't see this going where you think it's going. Like I already know what's possible, and I don't need that in my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So here's my last question: what is the big lesson, the big takeaway we should all get out of this doc? Like, what is the one lesson that everybody needs to take away from this?
I think the main thing that I took away from it is just like I said earlier, the lengths that people are willing to go to participate in big time athletics, to try to get to college athletics, to try to get to eventually the NFL. I think, if we put that kind of effort into doing other things in life, these kids put that kind of effort and energy doing other things, they could have been successful at other things. There was a kid on there talking about, I didn't have money to go to college, but he found a way to take out a loan to go to Bishop Sycamore. Bro, you could have went to Central State for $2,500 a semester, but when it comes to going to college, we don't have the resources then. But when it comes to playing football, we could find the resources. So I think just my biggest takeaway was like, as a community, we got to stop like putting like athleticism on a pedestal and stop worshiping.
But do you think that's possible? I mean, our society, like we worship athleticism and feats of like that's literally our society is kind of built on that, right? Like we focus on athletics as a means to make it out of places, but we just kind of all love sports. I mean, we take music out of school. You'll take a music program out of a school way before you get rid of a football team, right? Like you will, because a football team can also make money. It can also Like, we view these things as character building and as a means for success.
When you say our society, though, are you talking about our community as in the African American community?
No, I'm talking about
I don't-
society in general. Like, I'm talking about sports in general. Like, this documentary, like, Bomani Jones, who I think is like perfect in this doc. I've never seen anybody who literally said the most perfect sentence every time he spoke about everything he said, but everything was spot on here. But, you know, he pointed out in this doc, like, this is who this was going to happen to. Like, this wasn't, he didn't view it as a racial thing so much as you were going to do this to black people because black people are who are going to get caught up in this kind of thing because of where he was and all that other stuff. But I think just in like American society, you know, is 100% sports crazy. Like, we worship football.
I don't think this would have happened to a group of white kids. I don't think they would have idolized athletics and big time and being a big time athlete so much that they would do this to themselves, to their futures, just to play big time college sports. I don't think.
So why do you think that we would? And let me add a little wrinkle to that. You and I are from down south. We are from football, like, mania places, right? Like, you're you went to LSU. You're from Louisiana, where football reigns supreme. I went to high school in Alabama, where football reigns supreme. Like, we come from places where they build multi-million-dollar stadiums for the high school teams, in places where the college stadiums only have one side for seating, right? Like, we come from places like that. White people do that stuff too. Like, it ain't just a black thing.
They're investing in it, but they don't. You've never heard. So I commonly hear, and I'm sure I heard it in like, black people feel like they got two ways to get up out of their situation.
Right.
You know, play ball or rap. Right. And you don't really hear that from white people. They're never like, I only had two choices in life: play ball or rap.
That's true.
Right. So that's because, like, they understand there are other ways to be, you know, successful adults, successful citizens in your community.
But ain't that like a historic? I mean, I hate to do this, to be cliche about this, but doesn't that kind of just go back to white supremacy and, like, the legacy of slavery and, you know, breaking the chains of psychological oppression and all that kind of stuff? Like, our communities have been depressed in such a way where those things happen. Like, I'm with you. I know this is basically one of those personal accountability combos, right? Where it's like, at some point you got to take ownership of the circumstances in which you find yourself. But those circumstances were impressed upon a lot of us, because, I mean, that's why we have things like black excellence. Exceptionalism in the black community is such a conversation, right? We turn it into these things because some of us have gotten out of, through our parents or through other people that were invested in us and wanted us to win, or they saw something in us that made them realize, I got to make sure these kids win. Like, everybody doesn't get that. Like, I genuinely do believe that everybody doesn't have the same access to opportunity that you or I had. You know, you come from a family where everybody's a college grad. Me too, right? Like, you know, we come from those kind of families where, including your parents, to you know, on top of that, like, you know, including your parents, like, you know, both of my parents have degrees too. Like, that ain't.
My grandparents had college.
So yeah, so, you know, you were kind of on a track for that, right? So if you didn't, it would not be, because that would be your fault. It would be you. Corey made decisions that placed him in a position to not be the best version of himself, or at least give himself an opportunity to be the best version of himself, right? Everybody don't have that.
But so, you know, I'm gonna disagree with that. Well, I'm not gonna say I disagree with that, but what I will say is, at this point, you know, the only skill they need is simple observation skills, right? We can see that we can observe that there are people in society who are very successful who don't play basketball and who don't play football and who don't rap, right? And we can see the path they're taking, right? And all you have to do is follow the blueprint, you know. But you know, a lot of those other paths just aren't glamorized, so people will act like, it's not available to me. It's just as available as this one. The energy you put into this, you could have put into that. That quarterback dude, he said after the football season was over, he went back to Texas and started training and lifting weights every day. Bro, you was 2 credits short of high school. Go study every day. Go get them 2 credits knocked out, so you could have qualified for Grambling when they came a calling, right? but we don't put that kind of. He got the energy and effort to train and lift weights every day and throw the football, but he don't have the energy to go do his books every day.
But see, this is where I blame parents, right? His mom, again, was the one in the dock, like talking, like was as guilty as any adult in the room for this. Absolutely. She enabled that, right? And let's go ahead and racialize. That was a white woman. She viewed it the same way. She's like, my boy's gonna, sports is our way. Like I don't know if she's viewing it stereotypically like, my son's gonna make it rich playing sports, even though at some point she had to realize that probably wasn't gonna happen. But she's enabling that dream by not forcing him to go seek out it, or at least it didn't even seem like she was encouraging it. She let this fool go onto a field with a helmet he had no business wearing. Right? So this is the person raising him. This is the person raising him and providing him support and encouragement and all that. This is what I'm saying. Like, everybody don't have good people to help them see the other options and where they could be. And I'm not saying that you don't owe it to yourself.
What's the age where you see for yourself? What's that point?
I don't know. I mean, so I don't know the answer to that question, because let me say this. It's not like I come from a family full of like college graduates and all that stuff everywhere. In fact, I come from a family that has several NFL players and stuff like that in it. Or former NFL players and stuff like that. But my father always stressed education. Like, his goal was for me to get to college. Like, that was his singular goal, was for me to get there. And he talked about it relentlessly. So in my mind, that's just what I was going to do. Like, it never dawned on me that I was going to do something else. Now, maybe part of that is I wasn't necessarily athletically gifted like that either. Like, I didn't view sports as my way out. I was always the smart one. So, and my friends also recognized I was the smart ones. I don't know. I've always felt like I've been lucky in that regard, that even in high school, like, my friends who all played football or on all the teams were focused on my grades, right? Like, when I got a bad grade, they were concerned, like, boy, what you doing? I play basketball, he plays football, you get straight A's. Like, I got that kind of encouragement. So I don't know if it's an anomaly or I just got lucky. Like, I got blessed to be around people my whole life who were invested in my success and who still are, but I've had that from a young age. To your question about what age is that. So I don't know at what point there are people trying to rap at 50. I mean, I don't know when you're supposed to give up on your dreams. So this is the thing though, right? So while we can tell people they could be rappers and ball players, at the end of the day, most people don't know, almost very few people know a successful rapper, right? True.
Personally. Right, but you still see that as even though you don't know none, there ain't none in your neighborhood. There might not even be none in your city, depending on.
But less of us probably know a successful lawyer and doctor and all that other stuff too.
Not true.
You think all of us know successful lawyers and doctors?
Shit, yeah. Your cousin used one when he got locked up. You see them. What the fuck are you talking about?
But that was probably a white lawyer. So again, that's probably a white lawyer who viewed you as less than. And was just trying to take your money, like didn't believe in the case. I'm not trying to make excuses entirely, though I realize that is what I'm doing to some degree. I just think that you're right. There's a personal accountability angle to this, right? At some point, you have to realize what you're getting yourself into and then not do that or try to do something else.
These guys, like, on the athletics thing, is so, dude, if you go to certain schools, you might get a scholarship, dude. Nobody from that school is going to the league, right? So like, unless you go to, there's only a handful of schools that really like produce talent like that. You go to certain schools, so nobody from that school going to the league. So that's not even like a real. I don't even know how that becomes like a real path for people in people's mind.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting how all of the kids a lot of them are like 21 years old now, they're grown, but they were talking about just getting to college. And I'm like, so you probably don't really think you have a shot at the NFL, but are you viewing college as your stepping stone to a better life? Because that's actually a positive message. If that's the case, if they're looking to get to college because they actually think that's the only way they're going to get there because they don't have money or resources or whatever. And if they get to college, then they can then find a better life for themselves. Like, if that's the case, it's actually...
No, that's always the lie and the bullshit they tell us, right? That's just their excuse, right? That's how they rationalize it. Well, I can't afford college. Bro, let me tell you something. there's one thing in life that you can borrow up to the wazoo in, nigga, to fund your education, right? They will let you bury yourself in debt to fund an education. You can go to an affordable school. Like I said, in Ohio, I looked up the tuition of Central State. I think it's the black school. $2,500 a semester, very affordable. $5,000 a year. You can get a degree for like $21,000, right? Like, bro, that's the cost of a used Honda Accord. If I got to borrow that to fund my future, I'm willing to do it, right? But you know what I'm saying? We'll see these kids. They're like, I can't do that. But then this dude tell you need $12,000 to play at a fake high school, and you willing to take chances and make PPP loans and have your mama taking out loans, to play at a fake high school. But you wouldn't take that same chance to go to Central State and get you a degree.
Yeah, I mean, you're not. Let me be clear. I don't think that you're wrong. I do think that for some people, the dream and the idea of like, it is hard to change your mentality sometimes to think about what could be in other spaces, right? Everybody hasn't seen, even if you've seen it, let's say from afar, to visualize it for yourself. A lot of them can see themselves as football players. That's all they know. That's the one thing that everybody said they were good at or successful at. They can see themselves that way. And maybe it's difficult for those people to give up on that dream because that's the only place they've ever felt positive affirmation or whatever. Which is the sad part of it's possible that is true, and that would be sad, and that would probably be why so many of us view a lot of athletics as our way out, because that's the only place we've excelled for a lot of us, right? Like you excelled in the classroom and athletically.
Right.
I excel in the classroom. I'm good at other things, and people who see that I'm good at those things make sure that I know it and help me get to those other things, right? And that doesn't seem like they had any of that. They had Roy Johnson, one of the greatest scammers of all time, as somebody they call coach. And that's actually the lesson that I learned. Is like, don't trust anybody named Roy Johnson.
That can't be a lesson, dude.
Right. No, but like, it's just like the type of fraud that is possible. Like my mind has been expanded now. So now I think everything's on the table. There used to be a part of me that was like, some things are just impossible. Now I know that almost anything is impossible if you believe in the scam enough. If you have enough tenacity to be insecure, an extremist, and resourceful, the scamming world is your oyster.
Hey, you know what? I know who else is on the mountain with him. What's this guy? Santos. The congressman guy who made up his whole life.
Oh yeah, yes. I think Santos. I think that's right. Yep.
Yeah. These guys have let me know that if you believe in it, you can achieve it.
If you believe it, you can sell it, right? And that's what they're doing. If you believe it, you can sell it.
Yeah. He reminds me a lot of that guy. I see a lot of the similarities with them too.
Man. Well, all right. Well, listen, bro. I appreciate you joining me for this convo about BS High.
Thanks for having me.
I think we're going to be talking about this documentary for a really long time in the community. Roy Johnson will live in infamy, which is not a good place to live. So,
not at all.
Shouts out. Appreciate you, bro. And thank you to everybody for listening to Dear Culture, which is an original podcast of the TheGrio Black Podcast Network. It is produced by Sasha Armstrong, edited by Jeff Trudeau, and Regina Griffin is our director of podcasts. Again, my name is Panama Jackson. Thank you for listening. Have a black one.
We started this podcast to talk about not just what Black writers write about, but how.
Well, personally, it's on my bucket list to have one of my books banned. I know that's probably bad, but I think...
Ooh, spicy.
They were yelling N-word, go home. And I was looking around for the N-word because I knew it couldn't be me because I was a queen.
But I'm telling people to quit this mentality of identifying ourselves by our work, to start to live our lives, and to redefine the whole concept of how we work and where we work and why we work in the first place.
My biggest strength throughout my career has been having incredible mentors, and specifically Black women.
I've been writing poetry since I was like 8. I've been reading Langston Hughes and James Baldwin and Maya Angelou and so forth and so on since I was like a little kid.
Like the banjo was blackity black, right? Mm-hmm. For many years. Everybody knew.
Because sometimes I'm just doing some Sam that because I just want to do it.
An honor to be here. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing. Keep shining bright. And like you said, we gonna keep writing black.
As always, you can find us on the Grio app or wherever you find your podcasts.